Cardassians drink hot fish juice in the mornings. Captain Sisko receives the Orb of Time from the Cardassians, and Worf has an earthy, peaty aroma with a touch of lilac. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Who also smells with a touch of lilac, right?
Yeah, I keep that that frankincense and myrrh. So I got a little
biblical. Nice. My name is Ryan T. Has to do it today. We're doing a review of the legendary, the epic, the ground-shattering and earth-moving Trials and Tribble-ations. A lot of people contributed to this one, so let me pull it up very quickly. Story by Ira Steven Bear, Hans Beimler, and Robert Hewitt Wolf, and teleplay by Ronald D. Moore, Renee Echevarria, or Echevarria, I don't really know how that is pronounced properly, and directed by Jonathan West. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Happy to start reviewing this episode because it was a big deal back then. I remember the extra hype and the piqued interest by everybody when we were filming this episode. I was happy to watch it and to start to get to review it a little bit.
Yeah, I was hoping you remembered it. This is exciting. I'm glad to hear that. Very quickly, let us give a shout out to AbyssinianKiosk.com. That is Cirroc's sister who runs that website, and I can tell it's hidden in there a little bit, but Cirroc is wearing a shirt from there, and it is awesome.
Oh yeah, we're representing,
Beautiful.
Cross shirts. So
she's got the coolest designs. A lot of them are East African, specifically Ethiopian in nature. Really cool color schematics, really cool designs. Some of them are Star Trek related, some are not. Definitely go check that out. You can find the link in the description box below. That's AbyssinianKiosk.com, and it's getting very popular, I think.
Yeah, and just a little bit of a background on the name. Abyssinian is the old name for Africa, essentially. Mm-hmm. And specifically that region in Africa, the Eastern African region. And the reason we use the word kiosk, or my sister picked the word kiosk, is because in Ethiopia, we have a lot of these little kiosks, and we actually call them kiosks in Ethiopia. But these little kiosks, which essentially are these really small shops that are about the size of a little locksmith, booth or locksmith shop. But those little places will have the phone cards, they'll have all the stuff that you need, candies and water bottles, and those little things are everywhere in little neighborhoods and throughout Ethiopia. So the kiosk does a lot of big business. They serve the purpose of what a 7-Eleven or a Quickie Mart does out here. Those little gas station AM PM type rest stops. They serve that same kind of purpose. You can even make a phone call from there if you need to. Except they're not as large and they're not as well organized. They're more mom and pop type shops.
It's small business. Very small. We love small business.
So just so that's the origin behind the idea of calling it the Abyssinian Kiosk. Mm-hmm. It's a shout out and homage to the real thing that's happening all throughout Africa. Those little kiosks.
Really cool. Never knew that.
Yeah.
Cool. So check that out.
But back to Trials and Tribble-ations. I know you wanted to know if I remembered this episode.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
Yeah, that was one of the things that. See, I wasn't in this episode. Obviously, you guys have watched it as well, and even though I wasn't in this episode, I was around the set when they were filming this episode. So I got to see the cast dressed up in the retro uniforms. I got to see the station flooded with tribbles everywhere, which was really super fun, just kicking around a bunch of tribbles. And everybody was throwing triples at each other. They're soft little pillow type, cushiony little animals. Some of them can shake and have a little mechanism in them that allows them to vibrate and make a little sound. But for the most part, they were just inanimate pillows with these, with that fur. And so there were a lot of throwing those around at people and, joking in that kind of way when you wanted to get somebody's attention. But what I do remember was the publicity that was there. There was a lot of photographs being taken. There were writers were on the set, producers were on the set, some executives were on the set.
Wow,
and
a lot of hype.
There was a lot of hype, and there was a sense of something historical happening here that they wanted to witness in person. So that's my first memory of this particular episode.
Yeah, there was a lot of hype outside of the set as well. I remember there must have been commercials about it or something, because I remember when it first came out, this was like an event. This was like a check this out. And everybody was like, how are they going to do this? What's going on? Everybody was like, it was kind of like must see TV, and it was amazing. It was really cool. It was, I remember it was mind blowing at the time. And what was this like, mid to late 90s. And watching it again, it's still mind blowing. Now I kind of look at what the tricks are a little bit more, now that we know the tricks, but it still was such an ambitious undertaking, because if you don't do it right, then it's kind of just, it's going to be a downer. It's not going to look very good. It's not going to be, it's going to be more of a negative than if you hadn't tried it in the first place. But I feel like they hit it out of the park. What do you think?
Yeah, and during this period of time, the level of special effects is not what what it is today. And just to clarify for the listeners and the audience, that watching it now and you get to see all this special effects that are done today with Pixar and all of these Lucas and all of these people, they're making amazing films at this point. But
and Paramount.
Special effects and Paramount, yes. But this wasn't really done on television to this degree. This kind of seamless transition, this kind of visual effect that really merged two complete generations of television. My first thought when I was watching it was Forrest Gump, because I remember in Forrest Gump, there were scenes in that movie where Tom Hanks' character is shaking hands with the president.
Yeah.
And they blend him into certain scenes, so it looks like he was there during that time, and this actually reminded me of that kind of ambitious undertaking by trying to actually put somebody in a place and time that they weren't in. I like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I wonder who came up with it. I mean, the story was by three people: Ira, Robert Hewitt Wolf, and Hans Beimler. So I wonder who came up with the idea for, like where that little nugget came from before they all kind of started piecing it together, or if it was just an idea that they'd always kind of been passing around back and forth for a while, because that happens a lot of times too, where they say, we were talking about that idea for a couple of years and we never really knew how to put it together. So that would be an interesting thing to ask them next time we see them or talk with them. But
I agree.
Because the story, it wasn't just the effects that they pulled off, but the story was also fun. The scenes that they chose to use, the funny line with Dax saying, "Oh, I never realized how good looking he was." Those eyes. He says, "Oh, James Kirk was quite the ladies' man," and she said, "No, not not him, Spock. And of course, now she happens to be married to Spock's son, which is just perfect.
Which is, I mean, foreshadowing like Mickey Ficky. It's kind of amazing that yes, I actually made note of that too. I thought that was pretty special that ended up being the case, and that was written into the show like that. So many coincidences like that in the writing. But I want to say that yes, I believe so. Number one, after I watched this episode, I went back and watched the original Tribble episode with the Star Trek original
Wow.
cast. Right?
Shout out to David Gerrold.
Yeah, and I wanted to watch it. I wanted to watch it because I wanted to know what scenes were being taken and borrowed from, because without that reference, then it kind of doesn't give you enough to know what they're stealing from or what storyline is being incorporated. But they essentially took that show and made it another show wrapped around that show that explained different things that were already in the episode, but explained them out further, right? Very clever of them to write this, Darwin character, Darwin.
Yeah. Arn Darwin, I believe.
Arn Darwin, yeah. Very clever of them to take that storyline and have it tied in with the Bajoran orb transportation, and also to have Sisko and Dax basically on the other side of the scene that was originally filmed in the 60s, with Kirk getting a bunch of tribbles dropped on him, and now they're showing it from the perspective of inside that bulkhead. So all of these things were very well done in my opinion, just the way they tied those things together in the story and the writing. So right off top, they just, and I will say that I believe that the version that Ira and company wrote is better than the original version as far as pace, as far as storyline. It's more interesting.
Yeah.
I thought the original's a little bit slow, and that's one thing about the original show. It's a little bit slow and wordy, and not having the pace sometimes that keeps you going, the way that Deep Space Nine continues to keep scene by scene actively going. So I want to credit Ira Bear and Robert Wolf and Hans Beimler and those guys. One more.
You heard it here first, guys. Like Cirroc wants to review original series episodes.
No, I don't know about that. Oh my God, it was
showing off words like pacing and all that. He's like, let me put my critic's hat on for the original series and really dive deep into this.
But I mean, I really love this episode. They had some really gems of lines. You mentioned one in the beginning, but I thought one of them was when Bashir says to O'Brien, "I'm a doctor, not a historian."
Yeah,
and it's like it's such a throwback line, right? Isn't that's a throwback
to Bones? Yeah, Dr. McCoy.
To Bones, right? Yeah. So I thought, wow, that's great for them to just to subtly put that little bit of a line in there and give him a McCoy line. And then the other line that I liked was when Dax says, she puts on that little dress, and she said, and the women dress differently too.
Yeah.
And Bashir goes right back into his mode.
My word.
He's like, I think I'm gonna. What does he say? I think I'm gonna like the old days or something.
Yeah, something very Bashiri.
Yeah.
I
mean, something like that. Yes. So those lines were great. There was a little bit of Odo always surprises me, Renee, in his performances, because he gives you just a little bit more each time. And this time I felt when he was nurturing the Tribble and kind of, talking about it, he showed like a sensitivity and a softness that you never see from Oda. And he just decided in that moment, you know, that he was gonna like show this kind of, you know, animal loving, soft, nurturing side, and it just came out of nowhere, you know, because he's normally not like that. Is that a result of him not being, you know, being a human now and not being a shapeshifter? I don't know, but if it is, that's a great little adjustment on his part, performance-wise, for him to say, okay, well, now I'm more of a human, so I'm going to display slightly more human characteristics, because he's eating and drinking, right? He's ordering Roctagino and Tarkalian tea, and he's being more human in his behavior of eating and drinking, and maybe even in how he, you know, approaches animals and pets. So I thought that was another kind of subtle brilliance, layered in the performance.
Yeah, that's a good point, because he does seem more than just curious and interested in the tribbles. He seems enamored by it. Like he's like, oh, it's very soothing, it's very nice. And there was like a compassionate vibe to him, more so than just like inquisitive or you know, investigative. He also brings forth a little bit of humor in that same scene when he's talking with Worf, and he says, you know, when he first says, you know, it's soothing, isn't it? The bartender called it a tribble, and he says, oh no, he says they called it a, and then Worf goes, a tribble. You know, he says, this one doesn't seem to like you. And he says, the feeling is mutual. Like Worf is so fussy about this little hairball. And they were once mortal enemies of the Empire. An armada obliterated their homeworld. He was so proud. And Odo's like, oh, do they still sing songs of the great Tribble hunt? And then he goes, like he does like this little, when he tells a joke, his tell is that he goes like, oh, Quark, and what, you know, like he does a little head bobble. But it was nice to see him kind of, you know, let loose a little bit. Most people would say let his hair down, but it was more like he let his hair poof out a little bit for this. But yeah.
I wrote that same line down when he said mortal enemy of the Empire. I was laughing my ass off because of like, this little furry little, you know, baby kitten is a mortal enemy of like this warrior race of people. And then he said Tribble homeworld. And I couldn't even fathom a Tribble homeworld when they obliterated the Tribble. I was like, what would a Tribble homeworld look like? Are there buildings? Is there highways? Or is it just a bunch of piles?
It's just pile. I mean, can you imagine if it fills up a starship that quickly? The planet is just, you can't even see the ground.
Yeah. So what do they have? Ships? How did they get out of their home? So I was thinking about all of these things, and them blowing up a Tribble homeworld, you know, or attacking it. I just thought the idea was hilarious. The fact that they addressed the difference of the looks between the old Klingons and the new Klingons.
Yes,
that was the first.
That was, you're right. That was at the time. That was just as monumental as the technological feat that they accomplished, was that they actually addressed something that had never been addressed before that. And so for the longest time, from then until Enterprise, because in Enterprise, they dive a little bit more deeply into it. In fact, quite a bit deeper. But in that window of time, whatever it was, like 96 to 2005 or whatever it was, we all just thought, wow, something happened with the Klingons to make them change their looks, and we do not discuss it with outsiders, right? You know? And he was kind of like embarrassed, you know, they're like, Mr. Worf, what, you know? And so that was really cool, because you don't always have to explain something. Nerds do like to get it explained, sure, but at least acknowledge it. And this way they're saying, yes, we acknowledge that something happened in universe. Obviously, we know it's just they got a bigger budget and better makeup 30 years later. But in universe, they said, yeah, something happened, and we do not discuss it with outsiders. However, I would think that Julian Bashir might have some kind of knowledge of it, being a doctor and studying medicine or something, but at least it was acknowledged.
I think it was extremely clever of the writers to acknowledge that difference. It's I'm sure it was a glaring difference that was always being brought up to them at some point if they were doing conventions or people were asking them questions directly. That must be one of the kind of running jokes of Star Trek up until that point, which is, why did the Klingons look so different? And they acknowledged it without fully getting and explaining it. But acknowledging it itself is explaining it, right? So I like the way they take on something that would be considered a weakness and make it a strength and adapt it and admit to it and own it. Great writing, once again, great idea, very clever, in my opinion.
Yeah, like that funny line. I just want to say, like that funny line where the lady's like, the Klingons over there, and they're like, those are Klingons, and she's like basically saying, yeah, obviously those humans with goatees are Klingons. Duh, you boys have had enough. By the way, I thought she was a great actress. Like her reactions were very big and comedic, but it also her acting was very retro 60s style. It felt to me like
60s.
Like when I was watching her deliver her lines, I had to remind myself that she was not from the original series, because not just the makeup and hair and outfit that was totally 60s, but the way she acted felt like I was watching an actress from the 60s. So I just want to point that out. I was pretty impressed with that.
I have to give her credit. She was awesome in her scenes, very natural. And like you said, she had the comedic timing down. But the other thing was when I first heard that line, I'm thinking, Odo, you're the chief of security. You're the most observant guy in the world. And you didn't realize that you're sitting for the last 3 hours surrounded by Klingons, right? I mean, weren't you curious? Like, who are these people? Or like, what are they? Like, they're not dressed like Starfleet. So, they're something. I would think, at least speculate that who they are, what they're doing there, because you literally are surrounded by them. So you would think, hey, who are all these guys that are dressed up the same, ordering Rock the Gino?
Right. He's usually more observant than that.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of a little funny to me that he was, and even Worf, who knows that the old Klingons look different, would have said, hey, look, there goes some old Klingons over there, right?
Yeah. Don't look now, but there's some Klingons over there.
Something like that. Or make a reference like, I've never seen a old Klingon in person,
Yeah.
Like
outside of history books.
Yeah, something to that effect. So the fact that they weren't aware of that was slightly like, I don't know if I'll buy that. Somebody had to notice that 20 guys walked into, 20 bikers walk into a bar. You're going to be like, all right, who are those guys?
Hey,
so that's one thing.
Real quick, we do have to jump off to our break very quickly. It's going to be the quickest break ever, but everybody at home, as you can tell, there's a lot to discuss with this episode, as you probably already guessed as well. And we will discuss it all on the other side. So stick around on the 7th Rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
AKA Jake Sisko, AKA Tony Todd's inspiration in The Visitor. Today we're doing a review of Trials and Tribble-ations, written by a host of people and directed by I had
Jonathan West.
Yeah.
Jonathan West was our DP.
Right.
Yeah, because he was our DP on the show. And
can you imagine? Of course the DP wants to direct this episode because of where all the shots and the angles are coming in from. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. It made sense that he'd be the guy to do this because this is a technically difficult thing that you would have to line up all these different angles and shots and timing. Um, even the scene that's behind you right there, Ryan, when they all turn their heads the same exact moment, I was thinking, wow, you've got to make sure you do that, you film that accurately so that it lines up like that. So
Right.
those kinds of timing issues are important when you're
Mhm.
making these kind of cuts and you're cutting into other things that you have already basically set in stone, right? The original is set in stone, so you have to work around that.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this scene real quick. Also, very quickly, the trivioids from the beginning that may or may not have made the cutting room floor. The boys from Temporal Investigations are always on time. Teehee. Sisko receives the orb of time from the Cardassians. Cardassians drink hot fish juice in the mornings. Worf has an earthy, peaty aroma with a touch of lilac. Captain Kirk has 17 separate temporal violations. Dax loves late 23rd century design. And Worf says a Klingon armada obliterated the Tribble homeworld. But yeah, he had a lot of pride with that one. But so check out this scene. Also, Jonathan West, I was just checking. He directed 6 episodes of Deep Space Nine: Shakar, Return to Grace, Trials and Tribble-ations, Rapture, Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night, and Chrysalis. Those were the 6, but obviously he made his bread and butter with being a cinematographer of Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. So this guy knows his way around. But check out this.
I believe
here.
he came on board after Marvin Rush, which was our original cinematographer, moved over to Voyager, I think it was, where Next Generation, one of them. But Marvin Rush left, and then Jonathan West came in and filled it.
Cool. So check this out here. So here's the original scene versus the new scene. So they actually didn't just place the 2 guys, O'Brien and Bashir, which I had initially thought. They replaced 3 guys. They also added this blue shirt here next to Bashir. See, this is the original. And I was thinking they probably did that to give them more of a landscape with which to work for Bashir. Because if you look at how thin Bashir is here, and then on the other side, this guy is a little bit bigger. So if they put Bashir in this guy's place directly, there'd be some red sticking out. Right here on the right side, there'd be some red from that guy sticking out of Bashir's thing. So what they did was they added this 3rd replacement here to give them more of a background wall to fit, Bashir and O'Brien without the other guy's belly. At least that's my theory behind that. I'm sure there's more to it, but I was curious as to why they changed a 3rd person. I think it's just to give them more of a, like a bigger background with which to work, if that makes sense. And it looks like they also changed up the color. Obviously, they, improved the lighting.
Enhance the color a little bit. Yeah. That's definitely something that they did. Or to what they were going to do, the new current stuff, right? Because Sisko really blended in well too when it came to the lighting and the wardrobe and the set design. I mean, it did blend in. It did look like Sisko himself was even retro.
Yeah.
Right. I felt it. I felt that energy. So kudos to the way they filmed it and pulling off this very intricate thing. I wanted to ask you though, because there was a couple of things. First of all, the hairdos were amazing. I loved that right away.
Yeah.
I was looking at Bashir's hairstyle.
They looked more 60s. Bashir and O'Brien especially, they looked very 60s.
yes, their hairstyles were done to the T as far as throwing them back, and I love the way they pulled that off. But I noticed that Sisko says that he decided to wear the lieutenant
Yeah.
skivvies or whatever, the uniforms.
Right. The stripes.
Yeah, he wanted to wear that because he says, I didn't want to push my luck. And I just, that made me think of so much. Like, there you go.
I'm trying to be like Bashir here.
There you go. There you go. It's almost there. Almost. But exactly. You got a little swoop it in the front. Yeah, right there. We can get that. There it is coming.
Anyway.
But yeah, he mentioned that he didn't want to push his luck. It just made me aware that he didn't want to stand out too much, essentially, right? I don't know if you took it that way or what other way.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then further on in the episode, I thought it was interesting because they actually needed Sisko to be a lieutenant because of the cut from the original draft where Kirk is talking to whoever it was that they replaced. And he says, hey, Lieutenant, thanks for the da-da-da-da, or something. He refers to him as Lieutenant.
Right. And that's kind of like the reverse engineering there, where they say like, okay, there's this line where he says, okay, Lieutenant. They say, okay, so we got to make Sisko a lieutenant. How do we do that? And they say, well, obviously, because he doesn't want to attract attention. They kind of reverse engineer. They grab the scenes that they can work with, and then they put those into the story. They work those in.
And that's exactly what I was going to highlight, the reverse engineering that it would have to take in order to pull this off. You have to watch the scenes. You have to watch the first episode. You have to see which scenes you can steal and then apply to the newer scenes. So it's just remarkable how they did that. I really liked and it was clever. And it was like the way they started with the temporal investigation unit. They come in there like the Men in Black.
Yeah.
They walk in the door like the Men in Black. There's this whole kind of mystique to it. We hadn't heard of the temporal, but at least I hadn't heard of them before. Maybe you had, but I hadn't. And then they talk about the 17 violations from Kirk. So they give us this whole like, oh wow, this is basically like a Section 31 type of investigative body or some kind of government, federally issued body that goes around and make sure they investigate issues with time disturbances or time related incidents, which could be a whole nother spin-off, by the way, of Star Trek in the future. The TIU, Star Trek TIU, it's like a CSI type thing. Temporal Investigation Unit. Dun dun.
Yeah. By the way,
so
our good friend, shout out to Miss Eve England out in Wales, who messaged me something that I was kind of ashamed that I didn't know, but these guys, they know everything, and it's so cool. Now, these temporal officers, their names were, let me see if I can remember, Dulmer and Luxley. Okay. Now, those two names are anagrams for Mulder and Scully.
No way.
Isn't that cool? And I had no idea. That's Mulder,
Dulmer,
and Luxley are Mulder and Scully, exact anagrams. And obviously that was done on purpose. Isn't that cool? What a cool deep cut that is.
That's pretty amazing. Just when you thought you figured it all out, there's just more jewels hidden inside of there.
Yeah.
It's funny because when you look at the consoles for all of the set design, they would have all these names and stuff put inside of the console. So if you actually did a close-up on it, you would see the names of the set designers and the names of the producers and the writers all hidden inside of the consoles that the people are pressing. And so just like with the writing, there's just so much, there's even more nuggets there that are not even seen. There's stuff
Right.
that's just hidden right in your plain sight. And so these people are so good at dropping little gems here and there, and I really respect that. And you can tell that these writers, that our writers are fans of really good storytelling type of television. So they must have grown up on the Twilight Zones and the Alfred Hitchcocks and those kinds of television. There's no way around it, because they emulate that kind of storytelling when they do their episodes. Just like I said, this episode, in my opinion, is better than the original Tribble episode of Star Trek. It's written better, it flows better, it's more clever. It has tiny subplots that are more thought out. It's just better television. And so just meaning that they are such fans of not only the work that has been done before, but also able to tailor make it and add those little twists that make it so much better.
Yeah, it felt to me like this was a love letter to the original series. Not just that they were showing clips from the original series, but that they were painting it in such a light where, like the temporal guys were like, oh, Kirk, he is the biggest problem, wink, wink. Or how when they say those are Klingons, wink, wink. Or just when Dax is saying, wow, Spock is so good looking, and Sisko's like, I gotta meet Kirk, he's such a legend. And like it was truly like this love letter to the original series, and everything about it was paying homage to the giants on whom's shoulders they're standing. And so that was really cool. And then they threw in the Mulder and Scully for good measure, I guess, because that's got nothing to do with original.
No, but they even did they did a little line there with O'Brien kind of criticizing the wiring, like, who the hell did this? I can't read. I don't know what's going on in
there. Yeah.
So it's like you said about the homage to the original series, it's the new guys either paying homage or making jokes about or having witnessed in person the same people that they have studied in the history books and have studied on their Starfleet exams, right? Because I'm pretty sure that the reason why every Starfleet officer knows about Kirk is because he must be part of the curriculum of,
of what not to do,
decision what not to do,
and who not to do,
of why we have protocols now. This is why we have protocols, because of this guy. So the fact that legend is creeps on. The other thing I thought was interesting was Dax having a personal knowledge or relationship with most of the characters. So it was like, oh, Curzon, Curzon's knows this and he knows that. And I like the fact that she was almost there, right? She's like, oh yeah, she mentioned Kirk came by for tacos or something. So there was a line there.
I'm not
where
touching
she mentioned
that
like
one.
she. No,
no, she said, yeah.
What she said there was a line.
What she said that was so it was really sweet and endearing. She says, I lived in this time and it's hard not to be a part of it again. That's another like love letter, like this nostalgia of like, it was a beautiful time, it was really cool. And it's hard not to be back there. It's hard to accept that it's gone. That was really cool too. Yeah. Really good touch.
The other touch was Bashir talking about hooking up with his grandma.
Cirroc, what would you do in that situation? Never mind that I'm like, I don't think any woman would be like, by the way, I'm going to have my physical tomorrow at 1500 hours. I hope it's by you. I don't think that's something that they're going to say.
I've never seen that. I've never
But
seen that as a pickup line.
in his position, for the betterment of society in the world,
Humanity.
like you don't want to change the timeline. And if you think that, humping your great grandmother will save the universe, and not humping her will possibly just make you not exist, what do you do?
I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Well, first of all, they're not supposed to alter the future or get involved with anything. And these guys are getting involved with everything. They're in the bar fights. They're contemplating hooking up with the lady in the turbo lift. So they're doing a hell of a lot of getting involved for people that they don't want to get involved. But I just thought it was ridiculous. I thought the same way O'Brien was thinking, let me stop entertaining.
Spare me.
Please spare me.
Yeah.
With the predestination paradox. But it was funny, and I was getting my laugh on while I was watching it, because the whole physical 1,500 hours Lieutenant Watley, I thought was just like, they just had to throw that in. I think that was a Back to the Future homage that they wanted to throw in. So we have a little of Back to the Future. We have a little of original of the series. We have a little Sculler and Mulder and Scully.
Right.
It's a little bit of everything in here. Forrest Gump. So it's just a jambalaya of
nice
popular culture in this episode.
Nice. And when you mentioned bar fight, for some reason, the first thing I think of was when Kevin Garnett got interviewed. He was like, it was a bar fight, man. You ever been in a bar fight? Ask Chuck. He'd been in a bar fight. I don't know if you remember that, but it was some playoff game back in the day. He's like, ask Chuck. He'd been in a bar fight. Anyway.
But was this Captain? They mentioned Captain Kirk fighting the Gorn on Cestus 3. Is that a famous moment?
Yeah, because that was Vasquez Rocks. That was the big Vasquez Rocks thing, and that was at the same time the most famous and infamous fight scene ever, because the Gorn is swinging like super slow, and Kirk's like, "Whoa, I dodged it!" And it's the funniest fight scene ever, but it's iconic. That's kind of when people think of Vasquez Rocks, they think of that Gorn scene. That is the place where it happened. And then, of course, since then, they've used it a bunch of times over and over again. But, it's very iconic moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how about this? Are you ready to hear?
Really good stuff.
Do you remember the two Nams that were in this episode? Did you catch them? Or maybe we'll save them for the free for all. Those guys are pretty good at this. These guys always surprise me with their knowledge. So we've got the free for all in a few minutes. So stay tuned for that, because we got two Nams. The Trekkian nomenclature terms, or the Trekkian names. We had Spiken Flame Gems. We had Tarkalian Tea, as you already mentioned, and Danebian Slime Devil. By the way, something I've noticed is, because I started taking notes on these things, there are three fevers that are very similar. There's Cartalian fever, Rugalian fever, and Rudelian brain fever, all in the last 5 or 6 episodes. Regalian and Rudelian are almost exactly the same thing, but anyway, so back to the episode.
There's a whole bunch of fevers going around.
Yeah. And the only prescription is more tribbles.
Actually, one of the things I do remember is that's one of the few souvenirs that I took away from Star Trek. I actually took one of the triples. I think they were giving them away at some point, but cool. I have a tribble from that day. But then you wouldn't be able to tell that Tribble from any of the Tribbles that you can buy at a convention anywhere else.
That's
There's
the
no,
trouble with Tribbles.
That's the trouble with Tribbles. They just multiply. You can't tell who's who at some point.
Yeah.
But
And then recently,
definitely
I was just going to say that recently they're making a documentary about how the Tribbles caught were originally in Wuhan when the coronavirus broke out. It was called Big Tribble in Little China.
no comment.
So I'll edit that out.
All I have to say to that is this face right
nice.
here.
There he is.
You see that?
There's our
That's
favorite.
the face right there. That's the look of
wait, which one?
right there.
The one where he's saying, "Hey, that's pretty funny," or the one where he's going like,
No, the other one. This one.
"Damn, I was hoping it was the other one."
He's just disappointed that you would even try that. But no, I did love the wardrobe. I love the costume. I love the set design. I wanted to, if we had a chance to talk to some of the guys that were involved with this, my big question was budget and how much more money did it take for them to get this done? Because it looked like it would have cost more to have built this retro set and, you know, the different places they were in, the mess hall, the bar, I mean, I know it's simple in its design, but it's still costly because you have to build an entire stage, or at least part of the stage for it. So my question was about budget. They also had a huge advertising budget behind this because I remember TV Guide episodes and Star Trek magazine episodes and all type of publications covering this episode as far as the build up and the hype that led up to its premiere. So I wonder what the cost was as compared to the normal cost per episode.
Yeah, that's a good point. It may have been a super high budget, especially with promotion. It was just this new iconic episode. You know, it was just something that was done that had never been done before. And for me, one of the new things that I noticed this time when I watched it was just how, I don't know why, I don't know how I can feel nostalgic for something I wasn't alive for, but that does happen sometimes. We do sometimes feel nostalgia for something that we weren't around for. And for me, it was when they were showing exterior shots of the Enterprise and exterior shots of the K7 space station. Like when I saw that space station and its simplicity in design, for some reason, it just looked so beautiful. It looked so simple and beautiful, you know, kind of like how we viewed the 60s back then. Oh, it was a simpler time back then, you know, and I really liked them. And I don't know if the space station was a new thing that they built, you know, for this episode, or if they just got old shots of that space station and just kind of cleaned them up a little bit. Probably the latter. I don't know if you know.
I don't know. I think that they built the console that Sisko was on when he was on the deck on the main bridge. I believe that console area was built, but none of the other stuff was. I think they just CGI'd the other stuff. But I do think that they built the console that he was kind of operating from and scanning to see if there were tribbles. So, you know, other than that, I can't really say what kind of stuff they were putting into building the sets. I'm not quite sure, you know, what sets were built or were not. But you were mentioning the nostalgic and having kind of this feeling, and that's what I wanted to touch upon a little bit. One of the styles that people like and gravitate towards is called mid-century modern. It comes in a lot of either homes and furniture are made in this kind of way. You can find a mid-century modern home, which was kind of like Frank Lloyd Wright, who was the architect of those kinds of homes, and others. But it's a style, and the furniture is also mid-century modern type furniture. Now, those mid-century modern pieces are essentially the set design of the original Star Trek. And what they did is bring those same mid-century modern pieces to this episode. So when you talk about nostalgia and having a feel for the clothing and the set design, and those things are still popular to this day, as far as the style that people like to have, like a Spanish style home or a mid-century modern style home. So there is still a value in that time, in that generation, that built these kinds of things that have lasted and have stayed valuable and stayed desirable. So I just wanted to make a highlight to that kind of time period that has left such a big impact on people. To this day, it still has a high desire.
Yeah. Kind of like those old those big red 50s toasters and refrigerators and all that. That's a style that'll never die. But yeah, this is also a style that is going to kind of live on forever.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's always going to be referred to as a period of a style that had its effect. And even when you look at Space Odyssey in 2001 and 2010.
Mark Zicree let me borrow his Space Odyssey DVD to finally watch it, and I still haven't seen it. And I think I've had it for like 2 years. Shout out to Mark Zicree, who got the story by credit for Far Beyond the Stars and Star Trek Next Generation's First Contact. But oops, thanks for reminding me. I still need to watch that.
It's an absolute must-see, and it's like technologically, it's way ahead of its time as far as special effects and everything.
I believe Ira also cut my head off about it too. Ira did too, actually.
Yeah, I've seen it multiple times. It's one of the greatest movies ever. And pay attention to the furniture and the set design, and you will see a lot of Star Trek looking chairs and tables, and mid-century modern.
Cool. So it's time to hop over to our free-for-all, but we do have a third NAM that Cirroc, while you were talking, I realized I was like, oh yeah, there was a third NAM that I missed, and that's because you said it. So stick around for that on the free-for-all, everybody. And lastly, we would like to give a very hearty thank you to Carmen, aka Skillet, PJ Thomas, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, who's currently filming in Northern California, I think, right now. Yvette Blackmon, Homer Frizzell, Dr. Marie Segal, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Eve England out in Wales, Titus Mohler, and Tim Baum. Everybody else, stick around for the free-for-all, and we'll be right back. Oh, wait, what am I thinking? I gotta. This is. I don't. Do we have time to?
I'm
in a panic.
Very quickly, number one.
Yeah.
There it is.
I don't want excuses. Wait. I don't want excuses, number one. I want answers. That's a line from. It would be way faster to scan tribbles if you held the tricorder down and just swooped over the tribbles rather than picking one up, scan, put it down, pick one up, scan, put it down. I'm like, you guys are going to die. Also, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
This was a good episode. I'm going to say this was close to an 8.7. I'm going high on this one. I'm hoping the fans love the retro.
Dude, 9.4.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is almost a perfect 10 of it.
Yeah, well deserved.
This is the closest we've got.
I think it's the best we've ever had. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah. Never underestimate how much nerds like, high-tech stuff and technological advancements. All right.
The bar is set.
That's it. Free for all. Let's knock it out of the park. I bet people are going to have a lot of things to say. Actually, let's just sneak them on right now, and they won't even know that we're recording. Okay, here we go. We'll just pretend like we're just hanging out right now, and everybody can see what the free-for-all looks like. Hey, guys, what's up?
Hey.
Hello.
What's
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
How's it going, guys?
Nice picture.
What's
Ryan.
up, everybody?
Hello.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
We're also joined by Timothy Baum, Eve England out in Wales, TJ Jackson-Bey in Missouri, Dr. Susan B. Gruner, Scott Jensen, Homer Frizzell, Melissa Longo. It's party time. Everybody's got really cool stuff. Let's real quick start with Tim. What are you wearing, Tim? Who are you wearing?
It's
Oh.
There it is.
Okay.
oh, I did get my ears pierced 2 weeks ago.
There you go.
Nice.
No, this is
Yeah.
Jurgen Klopp, the manager of Liverpool.
Obviously.
I thought I was just kidding.
I thought it was just kidding too.
Nope, Jurgen Klopp.
Let's go like this. When you say something you don't really mean.
I thought I thought it said Nog at the very bottom by the J, so I thought it was JK, Jake, and Nog.
Aw, that's a
No.
good one.
Oh,
Saw that.
Oh,
I'm
there
going
it
with
is.
that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Got some versatility with that shirt.
We also have a couple
Sweet.
people that are totally sporting the original series right now, looking awesome. First, TJ Jackson-Bey, check it out with his Ensign Llama sidekick and the original series Klingon next to him. Check out the original series Klingon.
Yeah, yeah.
Those
eyeballs.
are pet Targ.
Yes.
That's it.
Ah,
Also, Homer,
That's
we're about to
great.
spotlight you, Homer. Check that out.
Hi.
Original series. Very cool.
yeah.
He's ready to go.
Like he's
I
right
decided
there.
to go with the Spock look. Well, shirt.
Nice. And Melissa Longo here is wearing a shirt from Abyssinian Kiosk. Ta-da.
Nope.
Sweet.
Nope.
No, I think it's from
Jadzia.
somewhere
Oh,
else.
sorry, I meant
Yeah,
I
I
meant
think
walking art
it's-
made by Melissa.com.
It's like, wow, we made that. That's great.
Sorry, we
What-
just said
what
that a
is
bunch
it?
of times
The shirt?
earlier. It's
Huh?
What does it say on
Old man.
it? Oh man, nice.
so that's
I like
Jedzia Dax. It's walking art made by Melissa.com. You can find that in the description box below. Click the link. Sue, do you have anything crazy? A Tribble.
Not just
Washed dribble.
an 80s wash Tribble.
Yep. And Eve England also has a Tribble in the corner there.
The main trouble.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
that's-
by the way, we'd like to submit a correction very quickly. When we said Melissa was wearing a shirt by Abyssinian Kiosk, we meant Scott Jensen is. It's save,
That's what it
right?
was.
There it is.
Absolutely. It's perfect save.
That's the
There it
Sisko
is.
kid.
That's Cisco kid.
That's the style.
Nice.
Also, last thing, TJ has now not only given us the before picture of Klingons, but the after picture of Klingons as well.
Just showed up out of nowhere. Just we do not
Beamed in.
discuss it. Discuss it with outsiders.
Awesome.
awesome.
So before we get too much into this episode, because there's still more to talk about,
Eve, you also have a Defiant shirt. Does this say Defiant?
It does, yeah.
oh shoot, good eye.
Oh,
Yes.
very
nice.
Yeah. The
Um,
Defiant.
Got my
mug.
Defiant mug as well.
Wow, beautiful.
Oh, good. Very nice. Like it.
That's so cool.
I like it.
Yeah, when I saw the lettering, I just thought it was some kind of brand or something. Good eye, Sarah. Okay.
I'll be reading. I know how to read.
So we have 3 NAMs today. Can you guys tell us what the NAMs are today? 2 of them are first time NAMs, as far as I know. One of
Are
which,
they from the original crew?
yeah, both.
Are
of
they
them,
from
yeah.
the original Star Trek crew?
Koloth? Yes,
Oh, shit.
yes.
Yep.
Hold on. What did I do there?
Bashir's great grandmother
Oh.
that he may or may not have almost made out with.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well,
You're not counting Curzon, right? Are you counting
No,
Curzon?
I haven't gotten into counting all the previous hosts, even though maybe we should have.
there
was
there were
Emily
two.
mentioned as well.
Okay.
They're kind of present
Emily.
with Dax, so
Yeah.
they're not.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
mean. They are appearing because
Yeah.
I don't know. So Koloth is
Great.
one. Another one, Cirroc, you mentioned during the recording of the show.
I said this person's name.
Well, you referenced this person. I don't think anybody knows the character's actual name. We just call it the Gorn
Okay.
Captain.
Yes.
The Gorn on Cestus 5, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Now, the last NAM non-appearance mention for everybody at home has moved this person into a two-way tie for most NAMs total. It's Keiko, and she and Nog now have 11 each.
When did they talk
Neck and
Keiko?
neck.
Oh, right.
O'Brien mentions it, doesn't he, when he said, "Oh, wait till I tell Keiko that I lied to Captain Kirk." I
Yeah.
think that's
Oh,
what
Yeah, good
Oh,
knowledge.
yeah.
Wow, very good.
Yes, you're right.
Good knowledge. I just saw the episode and I still had to check my notes. I was like, when was that?
You're
So-
right. Keiko was about.
What thoughts do you guys have on this episode? Homer, I know you've got something to add, right?
Sure. It was a lot of fun. That's the very, very short version. I think Ira Stephen Bear has come on before and talked about how it's not really a Deep Space Nine episode per se. But I just want to say I really appreciated how they blended the old with the new, and especially the color aesthetic, like the film. It's hard to tell that because it's certainly not the Deep Space Nine set and lighting
Mhm.
at all. So they did a great job with that, the lighting.
I agree.
I'll stop there. I have more, but I'm going to stop there for now.
Well, okay.
You know, one thing that stood out to me and that I thought was interesting was that between Picard, Kirk, and Sisko, they have all three kind of been in scenes with each other and have done episodes or movies with each other, right? Picard has done movies with the original cast. Sisko has done, worked with Picard in the opening series and then the pilot episode. But were the other captains working with the other captains?
Right.
Did Janeway work with Picard and Kirk
Yeah.
or Sisko?
Wasn't there an Admiral Janeway
Yeah,
scene?
she and was Nemesis.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. With
Yeah,
Picard.
she commands Picard.
Yeah.
And she
Okay.
mentioned Kirk. And
Oh, did
called
she?
them
Yeah.
cowboys from back in the day. Yeah.
Then there was
Called
that.
cowboy diplomacy.
Yeah, when
she
Sulu
referenced
was
that.
on that, she was on the episode. Had Sulu
Yes, that's
flashback.
right.
With young Tuvok. Yeah,
That was
young
really
Tuvok in there.
cool. That was
It was
really
an
cool.
excellent
Love that
episode.
episode.
And Ensign, no longer Yeoman Rand, it was Lieutenant Rand, wasn't it?
Right.
She had climbed up too.
Okay.
That was a great
So
episode. Yeah.
You said in Admiral, when was she Admiral Janeway? Which movie was that?
It was first. Well, no, it wasn't
Was it
first contact.
Nemesis
It was
or
Nemesis.
First Contact?
Yes, Nemesis.
That was the last
Okay.
one of the Next
Yeah.
Generation
How would you like a
movies.
trip to Romulus?
And what
With or
about
without the rest of the fleet?
Bacula, no.
Enterprise?
No, we've had Troy and Riker kind of on their show, and we don't want to spoil it for you, Cirroc, but they didn't really interact.
With it? Okay.
Oh, Riker did kind of as chef.
Yeah, it's a cool. That's a touchy.
It's
touchy
controversial.
subject right there. Yeah.
It's controversial, right?
Still hurts a little bit. So
Yeah.
how many
Okay.
years? Yeah, it's still there.
It can't hurt worse than Bashir hooking up with his great
Oh,
great
man.
grand.
That paradox, that red dwarf paradox, man. That's what happens.
Yeah, that
I think
hurts.
it's so funny though when Bashir is just getting so irate and O'Brien's just there just thinking this is ridiculous. And when
Yeah.
Bashir goes, and I can't wait to see your face when we get back to the station and you find out I didn't exist. And it's like, oh my God. It's just
It's like,
just so
please
funny.
beam us over now. Like, get us
Oh,
out of here.
it's
Just
just,
go.
yeah, because he says that with to Kira, doesn't he? And it just
Yeah.
cracks me up every time. It's just hilarious.
When she says, "Are you guys ready to beam over?" He's like, "Are we ever?"
Are we ever?
Yeah.
Have you guys watched the episode recently? Anybody?
Yes, I watched
guys-
this. I watched Trouble with Tribbles, and I watched More Tribbles, More Trouble,
Man.
which is
Wow.
what Melissa has on her background.
There it is. Hang on.
More,
Ta-da!
more triples, more.
Yeah, it's from
More
the
Trouble.
original animated
Oh.
series. They did another
Oh.
Tribble episode as a follow-up.
And we learned
Okay.
A little
about
more fun with Captain Koloff.
yeah, we learned about Worf's cologne too.
Oh,
Very beginning.
Yeah.
Musty.
Sort of a peaty,
Fun.
earthy aroma.
So TJ, did you notice anything in your rewatch today or yesterday that was new that you hadn't noticed before, or something that you kind of want to touch
Actually,
on?
yes. So, I mean, obviously, I already knew that William Campbell played both Koloff and the Squire of Gothos, Trey Lane, but I've never just flipped on, Trouble with Tribbles and heard Trey Lane until this time I was watching. I was like, yeah, that's totally the same
So
voice,
good.
same inflection.
Hmm,
So
cool.
I knew they were both the same, but watching them or watching it this time around, I actually heard it. And that's the first time I heard it. And I had not remembered how much of a disdain Captain Kirk had for Niels Barris. Just trashed that guy every chance that he could. And it was hilarious. So the original episode, I remember the Tribbles were funny, but I didn't remember all of his wisecracks to the
Oh, yeah.
Federation Commissioner guy.
He just kept knocking him down.
You know, when you this was something I was wondering when I was watching it, but those of you that had seen the original series episode first, however long ago, and then when you watched this Deep Space Nine episode when it first aired, or just the first time you saw it, did you recognize Arn Darvin right away? Whether you saw this in the 90s or whether you saw it recently, did you recognize him right away? Or when they said it, you were like, oh, that's the same guy as before? Did anybody actually recognize him?
I did not. I did not recognize him.
Tim, maybe?
It-
No, okay.
That was the same actor?
Yeah.
Yep, all the way through.
Same actor 30 years
Yep.
later.
I recognized him watching this episode because I was like, oh, that's the same guy.
Yep. DS9 has such a
Oh.
great connection to the original series, and that
Yeah.
with the actors going all the way across like that.
Ah,
Such a great connection.
You're right. With him,
Yep.
with Kor, Koloff,
Kang,
and
Koloff,
Kang.
Okay.
ah,
Yeah.
All the
Who
way
else?
across like that every time.
Worf
Yep.
Oh yeah, from the movie, right?
from Star Trek 6.
Yeah.
The Duras sisters back and forth. They were all over the place, but
So
They are magnificent.
wow, connection.
did anybody else
Yeah.
watch the episode recently that noticed something different or had a new thought on that?
Do you mean the original episode or the Deep Space Nine version?
Either one. Either one.
Oh
I-
man.
I watched the Deep Space Nine one last night, and I just loved it. It's one of my favorite episodes,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and for a million reasons. To see the original actors, I kept thinking last night, oh my God, they were so young. Time is so cruel in some ways, and but yet I have such fond memories of the original series, and I always will. It's not as good. I hate to say it, but I'm being honest. it's just not as good as Deep Space Nine, but still, it was really fun watching it. And this episode is just fantastic in every way, and it's like seeing old friends twice.
Yeah.
Yep,
Deep Space
absolutely.
Nine and the original
Yeah.
series.
I totally agree with what Sue says. I think I put this on Facebook yesterday. I just think I think it's actually a perfect episode. Particularly when you think about why it was made in the context that it was there as a homage and then intended to celebrate the whole franchise. And I mean, I don't think there's anything, when I was rewatching it yesterday, I just don't think there's anything that I would change about it or anything that I kind of, I didn't have any nitpicks with it or anything. I just think, and I don't use this word lightly, but I think it is sort of an exquisite episode because you could see that everyone spent so much time in the detail, like Homer already said about the lighting and how they used different film to make sure that they matched everything up and they recreated everything. I think they even found the Klingon costumes with the original ones from the episode. And you can just tell that everything just came together so well. And you just think, it just had everything. It had the nostalgia that brought everything together. You had the dirty humor, you had the sort of one-liners that everybody wanted with, Bashir's, I'm not a historian. And there was just everything it had. And I just think it was just a perfect celebration and perfect for the anniversary episode that they were clearly trying to create. And I think it is just fantastic. And I haven't really met anyone who doesn't like it either. I think it really does bridge the original TOS with sort of new Trek. I do think it's a perfect Star Trek episode. Definitely.
It's incredibly respectful as well. Absolutely. It's very respectful to the legacy. Incredibly respectful. Even my favorite scene is Sisko at the very end getting to go talk to Kirk. And he's, he's letting himself have that moment. He's like, oh, it was a pleasure serving with you, sir. And it was so respectful of both crews as well, too. That was really awesome.
And about that moment, I was thinking, I was like, there's no way that Captain Sisko is running around this ship and Uhura didn't notice him. But I like the way they played that scene. The way they played that scene, she turns around and looks, and she has this look on her face like, who is this? So she did notice him.
He had to come up with that quick cover story. I'm on loan from another ship. That's what it is. Yeah.
I'm transferring.
Temporary. It's real
Say
fast.
hi.
Yeah.
It's an honor.
He's like, who is this young man? Yeah.
So the original Enterprise is my favorite Star Trek ship of all time. It always has been. And so it was nice to see my favorite crew and my favorite show interact with my favorite ship. So that was pretty neat. And my last thing is on the bridge scene where Kirk almost sat on the Tribble and he looks back at Jadzia. So I'm looking in the original episode, I'm like, so who was originally standing there? And it's nobody. He just looks back.
It was perfect.
They really
did it on purpose,
put that together perfectly. It's just like Eve said, they made the perfect matches and it looks like it just fits. It looks like they were there.
Right.
So as I'm watching the original episode and seeing the scenes that they done, I can see, kind of, okay, I see, how they were able to make that decision that they could put someone there and make it look right.
They kind of did a George Lucas thing there where George Lucas, remember like 20 years ago when he was adding all these extra aliens and creatures to the original thing. And he said, well, I just always intended to have these things there. But in this case, it seems like they really could say, well, there should have been somebody here. He's looking at somebody. Might as well give him somebody to acknowledge him.
I like the way they cherry picked the best lines too from the original. Like the line that the Klingon says about the Enterprise. God, it's like one of the best lines ever.
I know.
All down trash.
Hilarious.
One line that was really interesting to me, and I had to say it like 15 times to myself just to really kind of sink my teeth into it, was when Captain Kirk says, I don't know, sir, or something. And it was just like,
Yeah.
I could kind of see, because I know everybody says that this guy, William Shatner, is all the rage, but a lot of us maybe, kind of more grew up on Captain Picard and Sisko, but I could see the appeal. I could see the charm. The way he delivers these lines is an interesting way. And that's right.
Yeah,
And I kind of look at myself and I'm like, if I read that line on a script, I would have delivered it in a certain way. And I can safely say that the way William Shatner delivered it is better than what I would have done. And so I'm like, okay, I could see the appeal to this guy, like he does make things more interesting in his delivery.
he was definitely appealing, that's for sure.
Yeah, he has that.
Talk too.
He has a twinkle in his eye, like a little charm in his face. When he was sitting at the table with Spock, and they were talking about, they were going back and forth, and he made this little twinkle in his face, and it was pretty amazing. So I can see why he's adored in such a way. He just has his own personal touch where you feel like he's making the decisions, he's kind of in control, and he also is humored by different things. So he finds the humor in Spock being so logical, or this guy being goofy, or him being a drunk, or him yelling at him like, I need more time. He finds that kind of humor in things, and I like the way he approaches it. But I also like the way that they started this episode. They started this episode with the temporal investigators, and they come in and they're like, basically tell us what happened. And so I love stories that begin where they're telling a story.
Like The
It
Visitor.
reminds me of a princess, like The Visitor, like Princess Bride, one of my young childhood favorite movies.
Yeah.
So when a story begins with, okay, let me tell you this story, it makes me sit down and actually pay attention even closer. And that's what they started this episode with. And it's like they had me from right in the beginning.
Yeah, I love the
I don't
banter
know
between
I don't
those
know if
two
you guys
guys
feel that
too.
way.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah.
a married couple. I hate it. And
Why do they always say
that?
Yeah.
Hey,
Oh,
by the
so
way,
Follow
Mulder.
them around, yeah.
by the way,
is that a joke? No, I'm serious. Good.
Homer
I hate
just
jokes.
referenced it, but Eve told us that yesterday. I had no idea that their names were anagrams for Mulder and Scully.
Yeah.
Right?
Except for the
Dolmer
letter,
and
I
Luxley.
think. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I only
Pretty
found
cool.
that out yesterday. That was amazing. I was because I also thought they had strange names. I was like, that's why, because they had to fit them into an anagram. So
Mind blown.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I would definitely like to follow them around and see what their regular day-to-day missions are like.
Oh yeah, that would be
Yeah,
great.
all the paperwork they had to go through. They already knew what Janeway was going to do. They already knew. Oh, man.
Yeah,
What about Discovery? Oh, thinking about what they had to deal with Discovery. Oh, Lord.
They quit.
We're done. We're retiring early. We're out.
So I had a question as I was watching this, and I don't know the answer, so I'm just going to ask it. Aside from Darwin, have we ever seen a Klingon have Raktajino? It is Klingon coffee.
I mean, maybe Martok, I think.
I don't know.
It's just always bloodborne. It's
I don't recall. Yeah.
We'll have to watch for it because I think it's future of where we are. Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit. So I had visitors here from France, and we had a French press, and he's like, I've never heard of that, for making coffee. Oh,
Yeah.
what is that?
oh, America.
Yeah, they also say
English
that we
muffin.
didn't. They always say we didn't invent
Yeah.
French fries. Stop calling them French fries. But my favorite thing with regards to French
Yeah.
people and coffee is that in France they generally drink espressos, or they call that a cafe, right? Is a little espresso. And what they call American coffee is jus de chaussette, which means sock juice. That's what they think of our watered down coffee.
Fair play. That's fair. That's fair.
Sock juice, huh?
Sock juice. So
It's totally fair. Yep.
You know, I experienced a similar thing about with Italian cuisine, and I was trying to find Alfredo pasta, and it turns out that it's not an Italian thing. Like they're like, we don't do Alfredo. What the hell are you talking about? Alfredo cream sauce? What was why? No, we don't do that. That's Alfredo is an American Italian guy, not an Italian. So you can't find
funny.
Alfredo pasta really in Italy.
Oh man.
So there's all kinds of things where you're like, wow, this whole belief is attached to something that you believe is like this.
The power of marketing.
well,
Power of marketing.
Eve, Welsh rabbit. Is that from Wales or no?
Rarebit. It's not a rabbit.
Yeah, there's no rabbit in the rarebit.
No, it's
Rarebit?
yeah. It
I don't
is
know
actually
anything.
that is actually a Welsh thing. Yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing.
Nice.
Mm.
Power of marketing. TJ, you got it.
Yes, sir.
Maybe humans made up Raktajino and said it was Klingon.
What's a rare bit anyway?
I don't know why it's called. It's basically cheese and egg on toast. So I don't know why it's rabbit.
Sounds pretty
The
good.
story I heard
Sounds
was
good, yeah.
it was kind of an insult if you had Welsh rarebit because you couldn't catch the rabbit because they were lousy hunters.
Okay.
So
That's interesting.
Kind of cold.
All right.
JK.
Any final
I've
thoughts
got
on
the explanation for rarebit if you want
Oh,
it.
yes, please.
Quickly, the original 18th century name of the dish was the jocular Welsh rabbit, which was later reinterpreted as rarebit, as the dish contains no rabbit. That makes no sense.
So it was called rabbit. Yeah.
Yeah.
but if you didn't catch
But
the
it never
rabbit,
had
it
rabbit
would be
in
rarebit.
Okay.
I have to investigate.
Yeah. We need a
No,
forensic
that's
investigation of this rarebit thing.
We got to get on this.
Forensic investigation.
It is very tasty. I do eat it fairly regularly, but it's nice.
On a
Melissa,
completely unrelated note, Melissa's hair looks amazing.
I second that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Melissa, did you
Love
see
it.
the animated series recently? Is that why you have that as your background?
No, I was looking for triples. I Googled triples and I really liked the background. So I was like, that's my background.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love triples. So, yeah.
Well, do you have anything to add with regards to this episode or your hair?
Well, thank you for the
What's your secret?
compliment. Wouldn't you like to know?
You like to know.
Only her hairdresser knows for sure.
Maybe she's
Huh?
born with it.
Yes. The hairdresser is me. But this episode, I love it. And I echo everything that everyone else said. Something new that I did notice.
Oh, you have a
Yeah.
tribble too.
I do have a tribble. I had to stuff it because the stuffing was all gone. It was just the skin. But was when so something new I noticed was and it was so subtle that of course I wouldn't have noticed it before, was when Dax was talking about all of the old equipment and she's talking about and then this goes in the back working on the thing and he turns to look at Dax and then he's got this kind of up and down look and he's checking her out in her new outfit. I was like, oh, and I was like, did I see that wrong? So I rewound it and I was like, oh, he's checking her out in her new outfit. But
Well,
I didn't
it
even
was
catch
so
that. That's
subtle,
a good
but
catch.
such good detail. And he's got this kind of embarrassed look when he turns back to continue looking like he's
just do
like,
work.
Like, oops.
You just reminded me of another great line, the "your flap is open" thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
yeah.
Yeah.
Big, you're gonna kill the battery. Come on.
Yeah, speaking of someone
Ah.
checking someone out,
Yes.
she was
Yeah.
looking Bashir up and down a few times.
Oh yeah, she was not subtle at all.
No, her ground is growing. Yeah.
We did kind of talk about that for a second.
Yeah,
That's not a-
It was really awkward. Hey, I'm having a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
colonoscopy.
I hope it's by you.
Come on down. Like, nah, that's not exactly the space that you want to be.
So romantic.
Oh, it was the 60s. It was a different time.
Yeah, maybe that was a throwback to the 60s.
That was a 60s back.
Was
Yeah.
the
60s
nun
and it wasn't
either
the 60s.
pregnant during this episode? Because they kept cutting away, and it looked like she had a huge
I-
bulge
Yeah.
in front of her.
Yeah, she
Yes,
was.
she was.
Yeah.
pregnant.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't it have been crazy to see Kira running around
Well-
in there? She wouldn't have taken any of that mess.
I think she kept the
Not that dress,
prosthetic
yeah.
a little bit longer, so I don't know if she was actually. I don't know the exact timing, but she appeared pregnant for longer than she actually was in real life.
Right.
Hmm.
I
And-
want to
and, you know-
mention.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, after you, Homer.
Well, just one thing before we close out. It was amazing how many times I got to see David Gerald on camera. I think I saw him 4 times in the episode.
Really? I had no
I wasn't
idea.
there.
Yeah, he's
David
there.
Gerald.
The writer,
He's most
the original
noticeable
story by.
as, he's most noticeable picking up tribbles in the hallway.
Just then dropping them.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
collecting them.
Hmm.
He's
Anyway,
absolutely great.
There's one Tribble episode that I forgot to go back and watch the short track.
Oh man,
Yep.
Origin, yeah.
oh right.
They're a great source of protein.
He's the
Oh.
guy that made these things.
I have a hard time picturing a Tribble homeworld.
Yeah, Cirroc was mentioning that.
Fluff as
Yeah,
far as you can
that's
see. There you go, right behind Melissa. There you go. It's the whole home world.
Yeah,
Not
I
to
was
mention-
thinking of the same thing.
Yeah, the great scene and the scene that I loved the most as a kid watching this was the very end shot of Quark at the bar with the Tribble just sitting on the middle of his head.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. I wanted to
that-
kind of
Loved it.
bring that up because
Yeah.
can you imagine Armin Shimmerman is looking at the script and he's going all the way down and he just sees the last
4
thing,
hours
he's
in a
like-
chair.
And yeah, and he's like, he doesn't even have a line. It just said, so he has to get up at
Yeah.
3:30 in the morning, go out there just to sit there and not say a line. And I wonder if he took it well and said, wow, this is going to be really funny. I can't wait to do it. Or if he said, like, seriously, I could have had a
Such a
week
great
off.
job.
Because it actually was a very funny look. Like he gives a very funny look
So
and a
great.
little, I don't know,
So
but
great.
Yeah.
worth noting.
And then just after that moment, you see Morn, and it appears as though he's having a conversation with a Tribble.
You finally talked. Yeah.
He speaks Tribble.
The Tribbles
I
are
think
just
the Tribble probably is talking Morn's head off.
No, Morn's
vice
like,
versa. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, he's chatting him up. Or her. It.
And then I
But
saw-
really quickly, in response to the Quark thing, I think that he was happy to be part of this episode. I think he had an idea of the significance and the kind of history that it was, and
So
then
it's the
he-
200th
Had to be part of
episode,
it, yeah.
right?
yeah, was it the 200th episode? No,
No.
Of
No,
Season
No,
four.
was
not
the
of the
number 200
franchise.
anything in this, or am I thinking about something else?
no.
It was an
that's something else.
anniversary of some sort, maybe.
Yeah, it was
It
an
might have been
anniversary of Star
anniversary,
Trek
yeah.
itself,
30th anniversary.
as was the Voyager episode.
Flashback.
Okay.
They're celebrating it. I think getting back to Quark and the Tribble, I think it's kind of when they in the original series you see the bartender guy and he has the Tribble on his head as well. So I think they wanted to
A little bit
say,
of a callback.
look, here was a situation there.
Four
Yeah,
parts.
so it was a callback.
4
I think so.
bartenders. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Left-
Bartenders end up with Tribbles on their head
Left
and
to
things
clean
go
up.
bottoms up.
So cool. I love it. Hey, so
One thing,
yeah, please.
okay, I call shout out to Dr. Muhammad Noor. I was listening to one of his Bio Trekkie episodes recently, and he mentioned Quadro Triticale. But he was talking about was it polyploids, and he was talking about the Discovery episode with Sukal and the Kelpian, and the line that he may have been a polyploid, and he applied that to the Quadro Triticale as to why it might have been able to thrive in this Sherman's Planet environment where they couldn't grow anything else. And so that I recently watched that, and it deepened my appreciation for both of these episodes.
Nice.
And they even one-upped it in the animated series and went to Quinto Triticale.
Yes. Oh. Hey, so yeah, we love Dr. Muhammad Noor. He's awesome, and we can't wait to have him back again as well. But before we go, we're talking, I think, Sue, you were talking about kind of what made the original series cool in its way, and I was kind of singing William Shatner's praises. So I kind of wanted to go around and ask everybody if they can pinpoint one thing about the original series that really made it, special. Was it, the color, or the shot selection, or the music, or the acting, or was it Kirk's charm, or was it the storytelling? Was there like one thing that really kind of made it special, whether it's back then or now in hindsight? Tim, you've been very quiet today, so we're going to call on you first because you can't escape this time.
The thing I remember most about the original series was all the different characters and how they interacted. Part of that was the actors behind it, but they all seemed to work together beautifully. Scotty and McCoy and Kirk and Spock. So it's like there's a good ensemble. That's the one thing I'll remember.
Yeah. What do you think, Melissa?
I don't know if there's one thing that stands out, but there's several things that make it work. And I do love how stylized the original series is. Uhura is fantastic. I always liked her, and Spock. he's got a special place in my heart too. But and I haven't watched all of the original series, but the ones that I have watched, I do appreciate some of the stories they're trying to tell, and some of the lessons that they're trying to get across in those stories. And I don't know that they always executed them well, but when they did, it was like, oh, they didn't hit you over the head with it, but it was good storytelling, and good messages that needed to be told. Needed to be heard.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, TJ?
Wow. Feel like I grew up with these guys. I watched them a lot when I was young, and so they were just kind of my buddies. I enjoyed how it took all of them to solve the problem usually. All of them had a part to play, even if it's just the guy that has to sit up on the bridge and keep the ship while everybody else is running around having fun, which was usually poor Scotty or Hulu or somebody. But all of them had a part to play, and I appreciated that. That's kind of a philosophy I've had in life, is that everybody should be involved. And so, here.
Well, that's all the time we have, everybody. Sorry that we couldn't get to the rest of you, but
no, everyone must be involved.
Just kidding.
TJ just taught us that.
Oh yeah,
We just finished saying that.
Way to miss the lesson.
weren't you listening? Dr. Susan V. Gruner, your thoughts?
Well, I was a child when it came out, whilst most of you were not born. And I remember it vividly. It was so different. It was so ahead of its time. I think about the early 1960s and what was going on. And here we have a show where there's a Russian guy on the bridge, there's a person of color on the bridge, there's an Asian person on the bridge, and they're all getting along, and it's absolutely amazing and believable. It provided hope. It was fun. It was just fabulous. The on-screen chemistry between the actors was amazing. And it's even more amazing when you know that in true life, they probably didn't like each other very much, if I remember correctly, but that was not evident at all. It was just so perfect. And yeah, some of the episodes were kind of silly in some ways, but still, it was groundbreaking stuff. Roddenberry really was an amazing person.
Yeah.
I mean, that one, if not for that, we wouldn't be here together as a group. That's what started it all.
That's very, very true. Mr. Scott Jensen, your thoughts?
Oh man, I talk about this specifically a lot, so I'm gonna try to pare it down a little bit. My favorite thing about the original series as a whole is the lesson you learn from Spock and McCoy, how they are in different situations, the angel and devil on Kirk's shoulder, and you learn throughout very many different positions that Kirk is thrown through about the balance of thought and emotion that is so important in life. And you can't run into everything with only logic, and you can't run into it with only the emotion of the two of them, at times being like such pure examples of both. And I always thought that you learn it all the way through. And of course, with Spock's popularity grown, he gets a little bit more of a focus on him. But and then just between Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelley's, their chemistry is unbelievable between the two of them, just arguing back and forth like the two sides of your personality would be. And I always thought, watching it with that mindset, I feel like I pull so much more out of it as well too. Wow. So yeah, I would
green-blooded, he would call
Hobgoblin, yeah.
back and forth is green-blooded
Marie
hobgoblin
all over this.
Yep. but then who was it when Spock in the movies was dying? Who was the person that he chose to put his Katra into? Was McCoy right away, because he knew that dude knew how to hold a soul. He could hold two of them. He had it. So yeah, so that's definitely, I think the two of them being friends too, because you always get the Kirk and Spock feel, but I mean McCoy and Spock as well. I think there's a lot to be learned from that, and great sci-fi, like Sue was saying, 100%, as you learn something from all this stuff and the chemistry. Yeah, absolutely.
So that wasn't just Spock's
learning
revenge for all the arguments.
Maybe it was that too, but yeah, Spock showing a little bit of emotion. So then McCoy was right again, because hey, revenge. I don't know, man.
It's funny. That's very cool. What do you think, Eve England, out in Wales?
Well, it's difficult to follow some of those answers actually. I think for me, it's probably the overall aesthetics of the show, so that the colors, the way that all of those buttons on the bridge just beep and light up, and the sound of the door is, it's just that, because I haven't really watched all of TOS, but it's certainly the one I remember from probably the first Trek that used to be on a Tuesday. I just remember. So when I just think of Star Trek, and I think if someone was to say, what is Star Trek and describe Star Trek, I would probably describe the feeling of the music, the theme, the colors, the uniforms, everything that I think is in TOS, even though I prefer some of the other stuff by far. I think in terms of it is fundamentally Trek in terms of the aesthetics and everything else to its heart. That is what Trek is all about. I think it's obviously the iterations have improved as we've gone on, but I think that's what comes to mind when you say it. So yeah, it's the aesthetics for me, and the music, the theme. The theme is certainly the most distinctive, I think, and my favorite, even though the D9 one is amazing, but you can't beat that original one. It's just got something about it.
Yes, it does.
For a second there, out of the corner of my eye, Melissa, I thought you were raising your hand, but it was just that hand coming out of the thing.
I've been saying that ever since we got on here.
Yeah.
By the way, everybody at home, check out Eve England on Instagram. She has the coolest pictures always, especially of her cat Starbuck, who always has a lot of things to say. A lot of things. Homer
You know, I was thinking about something. Can I add something?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So, Eve reminded me. I remember vividly when the first movie came out, the first Star Trek movie after it had been canceled and it hadn't been on the air. We were watching reruns back in the day, and I can remember being at the theater on opening night. Wow. And everybody in the audience, the minute you saw that crew, there was not a dry eye in the audience. That's how much it meant to us to see that cast together again. And then when Spock walks onto the bridge, I mean, that was just absolutely amazing. And I will never forget that.
Wow.
You brought up something, Susan, I forgot about. One of the things I liked about the original series is because I grew up with it. But during that time, it started at the end of the Gemini program, right as Apollo was starting. But back then, everything was space related. There was the Apollo Motel, the space gas station, the Gemini grocery store. So it was like, and then there's this science fiction, we've got people going to the moon, and now we've got this show. And I always remember putting those two together growing up in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. Well, Homer, it's come to you.
Yep.
Any
So
thoughts?
I agree. Yeah, I agree with what everyone has said. I mean, just look at the colors that are used. There's no show that I can think of or movie where you can see a frame of the cast and you're like, yep, I know exactly what this is. You know exactly what it is. I want to say that what I take away from Star Trek, the original series, but it kind of goes with the rest as well, is inspiration for the things that people can do and achieve if we keep going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Cirroc, I don't know how much of the original series you've seen, but you certainly watched The Trouble with Tribbles. Was there something that jumped out at you that you kind of noticed about the original series that's different from most other television?
Yes, the thing that I enjoy the most about Star Trek is that it doesn't dumb down for its audience. It keeps itself intelligent. They use medical terminology, they use physics and mathematics, and they continue to talk to us, the audience, as if we're smart enough to understand what's going on. And I like that. I like to be treated like somebody who can figure things out and who's challenged mentally and may have to go and look something up and find something and educate myself a little bit more so I have a better understanding. I like to be challenged that way. I don't like to be talked down to like I'm an idiot or baby spoon-fed stuff. Give it to me straight, give it to me hard. You can even come with these abstract thoughts and I can find my way around wrapping my mind around it. whether it's considering about time or space or technology and how it works. Allow me to open my mind and receive that information and learn and get smarter and get better. And I think Star Trek talks to its audience as if they know what they're talking about.
Right.
And I like that. I
Mhm.
appreciate that respect.
Here, here.
Yep.
You know, one little thing I noticed, the reason I was kind of thinking about this too was because we were talking about the earlier line that Dax said when she said, you know, I lived through this time and it's hard not to want to be a part of it again. And, you know, that's what we're kind of thinking about that. And for me, I was thinking like that it kind of had its certain charm, and watching just the scenes with Kirk and how he delivered things in a way that was, you know, many actors would have chosen to deliver them in a different way. Let's just say that. He certainly is known for his own acting style, but it's extremely charming. And so was the show. It handled difficult things and it went into important things, but it also kept things light a lot of times. And it also had like little funny jokes at the end, or the little quips between McCoy and Spock, and Kirk always had kind of like that devilish, hey, you know, hey, I'm a captain, you know, or whatever. But looking back at it, it's very charming, and I don't feel like it's ever lost its charm. It seems like it's almost, the charm is almost growing, you know, the farther we look back at it, at least to me. But anyway, this was fun, guys. Thanks very much for joining us on the free-for-all. And hopefully we could talk about this a lot more with people like Doug Drexler. Should be a great time, because what they did was just unbelievable. By the way, you guys, this got a 9.4 on IMDb. Well deserved, right? I think that's the highest that we've ever seen.
Should have been a 10.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it should be.
I'm gonna go back in there right now.
It's perfect. So
Go fix that.
Do it. Let's bump it up. All right. Well, thank you very much to Melissa Longo, to Timothy Baum, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Scott Jensen, Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy, Eve England with the Welsh rare bit, and Cirroc Lofton, our favorite person in the whole world, Aaron Eisenberg, that, by the way, Cirroc used a picture of Aaron to show me that that my jokes sucked.
Yeah, how bad your jokes.
Yeah, I
yeah, it's that Aaron face when he's just disappointed that you even tried that kind of.
But it was like side by side with also the smiling nog. So I was like, "Is it that one?" He's like, "No, it's this one," where he's like,
"I can't find it." But
anyway, all right. Well, thank you all very much, guys. We'll see you next time. Everybody at home, always remember the 7th rule.